Hello, everyone. Welcome on this cool January day. I'm Khara Plicanic, and this is Creative Pro. I'm so glad you're here. I see some regulars out here in the chat. People tuning in from West Virginia, from England, where there's no snow and here in Nebraska. So it's always good to have you guys. Thanks for being here. Uh Today is a fun one of my favorite sessions. We are going to be talking about hidden font features. Do you know? Like, I'm just curious if people are like, "Oh, I know about the hidden font features." Or are people like, "What? What do you mean hidden font features?" Let me know in the chat. So the agenda today is we're going to start out. I'm going to talk to you about where to find the fonts that can do these cool things that I'm going to show you. And the good news is that most of the fonts I'm showing you today, I think all except two, are free for Creative Cloud subscribers. So I'm going to show you how you get them, where you get them, and and then we're going to talk quickly about the different font formats because I know that can be really confusing for people. And then we're going to get into the features that make fonts so fun and how to use them. And I got to tell you, we don't have time to like just really go down the rabbit hole, but there are so many amazing ways, clever and very creative ways that people have come up with to take advantage of some of these font features. So it's going to be fun. And, if you are someone who's into fonts, then you are probably a designer. And we want to make sure you know that we have some other really cool events coming up that you might want to check out. So, one of those is the Presentation Design Conference coming up just next month at Creative Pro's online event platform. So we would love to have you join us for that. It is online, so you can join from anywhere in the world. And then later this summer, at the end of June, we are going to be gathering with our friends in Nashville, Tennessee. So if you want to come out and hang in person, this is the event you want to come to. It will also be online for those of you who can't make it to Nashville, but if you can make it, I gotta tell you, the food is so good and it's really fun because we all just hang out. It's like creative camp for grown-ups. And it's like a bunch of really knowledgeable, passionate, experienced, wise people, and we just hang out and like trade techniques and tips and how to do stuff. So we all solve each other's problems and it's really cool. So if you think you want to check those out or any of our other events, you can save $100 on any of them with the code live stream. All right, so let's take a peek and see what's going on in the chat. Um, let's see how this works. I've removed. Oh, look at that. It popped up nicely. All right. Font freaks unite. I love that. Oh, how many fonts do you guys like think you have on your system? Do you even know? I don't. I'm afraid to count. Um, let's see. We've got Elaine joining us from the Pacific Northwest. No snow, but just some rain, of course. I would take that, I tell ya. We have another font maniac here. So welcome. You are in good company. We've got friends joining us from chilly New Hampshire. Lovely New England. I know you guys have all been hit pretty hard with this Arctic blast or whatever. So I hope everybody's staying safe and warm. We've got friends coming in from Illinois and Idaho. And this is so fun. And Donna is freezing in Chicago. Oh, I love this. This session is going to be font-tastic. Well, I agree. I hope I can live up to that. So, can people say, Emily has over 7,000 fonts. That is wild. That's probably more than I have actually. Um, it's hard to manage, right? Because they can be squirrely and they can crash your system and stuff. But yeah, it's a thing. So you might, as our Canadian friend here, it's maybe that's time for an intervention. I don't know. I don't know what the limit is. I guess it's as many as your system can handle without crashing. So let me know. I'll be curious to know how many of these things you guys are familiar with or know about. Or maybe you've heard of it, but like you aren't sure how it works or what the specifics are. So let's talk quickly just about font formats. I think it's a good place to start because the features we are going to be talking about and looking at today are features of what's called an open type font. So when you download a font, purchase a font, license a font, it comes in several different flavors. Sometimes you get more than one flavor in one purchase. So you might be wondering like, why do I have the same font as a TTF and an OTF or a WOFF or a WOFF2? And that's a good question. So these bottom two formats, WOFF and WOFF2 and EOT, which I forget what that stands for, encapsulated, I had it somewhere. Let me look. I have it. Oh, embedded open type font for the web. Those and the WOFs, those are web formats. So we're not going to be getting into them today. Web stuff is like not my area. It's above my pay grade and my brain grade. So I can't tell you much about those. But we're going to focus on the TTF and OTF formats. So TTF is a true type font, and that is like an older font format. And it had a lot of limitations, which led to the creation of the OTF font format. And that is where the magic is. And we'll be talking about what those benefits are specifically in just a second. But the question that I get a lot is like, hey, I bought this font and why do I have a TTF and an OTF? And like, which one should I install? And my answer is always, if you have that choice, you want the OTF version because it has so many more features baked into it that are not possible in a TTF. It's kind of like if you're talking about like a PSD file that can have layers and transparency and masks and all kinds of cool stuff versus a JPEG that can't. So that doesn't mean there's not a time and a place for a JPEG, but it does mean that there is also a time and a place for that Photoshop document, or in this case, OTF. So not all applications can make use of OTF fonts, which is why often type designers will still include a TTF version. But if you are using any of the Adobe apps, you can fully utilize the OTF features, so you can just ignore the TTF file. So I hope that helps and kind of clears up any confusion about that. So when in doubt, you want to install the OTF one. All right, so what are the benefits? Why do we care about this? So one is amazing features, and we'll see that in a minute, but that can include things like ligatures. You can have different style sets, different stylistic alternates, and all kinds of options. And partly that is because it can also handle over 65,000 glyphs. I think the specific number is like 65,535, something like that. So a glyph is what we call each of the little characters or letters or symbols or whatever it is that you're looking at in your font, right? So you think about like just in the English language alphabet, we've got 26 characters, right? And if you have lowercase 26 characters, uppercase 26 characters, you have punctuation, you have symbols, you have all kinds of spacing characters, etc., it adds up pretty quick. And other formats, like the TrueType format, is way severely limited in the number of glyphs that it can have. And that can cause problems when you're trying to have support for multiple languages and all of these extra cool versions of different letters and stuff. So the fact that OpenType fonts can have so many glyphs baked into them is incredible, and it opens up a lot of possibilities. And OTF fonts are more like little programs, like they can be automated. And we will see this in a little bit. I'm going to demo how you can automate a font. And you might be wondering, like, what does that even mean? I'm going to show you, and it's pretty cool. Now, why doesn't everyone just already know this the same way you know how to like just type and change a font and all of that? And that's because there are some challenges that come with it. One is that these OpenType features are not very discoverable. So we're all busy, we're all just doing our thing, and like we don't have time to go on a little hunting expedition or a detective investigation to try and figure out like how else we might use our fonts. Like the way that the apps make these available to us is not very discoverable, and it's not the kind of thing you just accidentally figure out. They've made it a little more discoverable recently, and I'll show you how that is, and maybe you've stumbled into it. But again, you've probably been like, what is this? I don't understand what's happening. So hopefully we'll help with that today. The other thing is that it's different in all the apps, and I don't even know about Premiere or After Effects, so I can really only speak to working with the OpenType features in Illustrator, InDesign, and Photoshop. So that's what I'll have at my fingertips today. But it's all a little bit different, and the panels are kind of in different places, and it honestly throws me for a loop every time. And the apps, they kind of look the same, and sometimes you forget which one you're in. So that's one thing. The other thing is that when you're looking for a font and you're looking for these specific types of features, not every font foundry or font marketplace communicates the features that the fonts have. And weirdly, Adobe fonts, which is one of my favorite places to go get these fonts because they're free for Creative Cloud subscribers. You already have the access to these fonts, and they're actually the worst at showcasing what a font is capable of. So I guess maybe they figure they don't have to be good at it because you can license them and activate them for free if you're a Creative Cloud subscriber. So I'll show you that. So maybe they're like, well, just activate it and then investigate it. But that takes a lot of time. So it's kind of frustrating. Frustrating. The other thing is that as much as there is an attempt to have some standardization with all of this, it's not always there. And so when you build a font, you, as a designer, a font designer, you get to control some of this programmability, and you get to label and categorize things that can impact how they're accessed in the apps. And everyone kind of does it a little differently. So that's another thing. But the good news is it invites us to go exploring, and I think that's super fun. So let's get into it. And if you're sitting here going, wait, what? Then you've coming up with questions, pop them in the chat, and we will pop back over, and I'll get in there in a little bit. For now, though, let's see what we are dealing with when we're talking about finding these fonts, okay? And this is also constantly changing. So what I'm going to show you is the Adobe Fonts website. This is where I like to go to find a lot of this stuff. And So it's just at fonts.adobe.com. So you can see this up here, right? Way up here, fonts.adobe.com. So you just go there. You have to log in with your ID, of course, and then you can just browse things. So I'm just going to click over here to browse all. And you can scroll through if you find something interesting. Like, actually, I found this font here recently and it's really pretty cool. It's a textured watercolor font. So that's pretty neat. When you are here, you can look at the characters and see a little bit, but it doesn't show you all of the bonus glyphs. So if you read here, for example, it says that there are standard and discretionary ligatures, there's alternate glyphs, fractions, and bonus glyphs, but we're not able to see them. And that is kind of what I would like to be able to do. Like, you want to be able to see what kind of glyphs you're getting, but that's not a thing here. So, but let me remove this so I can show you how to install it, I guess. So if you don't have a font like this and you are like, I want to start using this, then you can come down here and you can add. That's all you have to do is add the font. So if there were multiple fonts that are part of a family, you can just add individual fonts, or you can come up here and add the whole family at once. So I'm going to go ahead and add this back in, and it'll tell you that it's added and that you manage your fonts in the Creative Cloud app. This is always constantly changing. It used to be that you could add these things and actually browse them pretty nicely from within the font menu of the applications, but that seems to have gone away. It's still kind of there, but it's kind of not very useful. And I can show you that too. So anyway, this is just letting you know it's been added, and if you need to manage it somehow, you do that in your CC app. So we'll just click OK. And that's it. You don't have to actually download a font file and install it and all of that anymore. So that's kind of a cool thing, I think. All right, so all the fonts that I'm showing you today, with except two, which I'll point out, they are all here on Adobe Fonts. So when you hear the names of them, you can come up here and hit search. And like, for example, one is called Filicudi. That's what I search for. It's called the Typoteca series. That's the family, but the individual fonts within it are called Filicudi, or it's Italian. Maybe it's Felicudi. I'm not sure I'm saying that right at all, so forgive me, I'm sorry. But I'm going to be showing you actually this font right here, Filicudi Color Pride. These were designed by Ulrika Rausch, and they're really cool. So I'm going to show you how this works. You can see I've got them all installed here. So let's jump over to Photoshop, and I'm going to give you a little flavor, a little taste of what is possible with these fonts. So this font is not only an open type capable font, but it's also got color baked in, and that is a thing that happens that you could do. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to show you how this works. So these stripes and everything are just part of the font. And right now it just, says hi. How cute, right? And you'll notice that the stripes, the color stripes, repeat in a pattern. So we have pink, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, blue, purple, pink, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, blue, purple, etc. So what happens if I go in here and I want to change this? Instead of hi, maybe I want to write hello. So you might think, well, now the pattern is going to get all jacked with the color stripes that are happening in the background, but they don't. This is amazing. And you'll notice if we look, we've got two L's right here in a row, and you can see that this L has the blue, the light blue and the dark blue coming out of the top of it. And this L has the yellow and the green. And so what's happening behind the scenes here, and I've watched interviews with Ulrika about how she designed this, and it's really brilliant. And this is where that automation and sort of programmability can be baked into these open type fonts. What's happening is that she created versions of all of the letters that start with every possible combination of stripes. Okay. So then what is happening behind the scenes is when we type out these letters, it's looking and seeing like, okay, this H ends with this yellow stripe right here. So out of all of the possible E's with all the possible first color stripes, it's smart enough to know to put in the E that goes with the green and the blue stripe first, right? I just think that is so brilliant. So that's one just example of how this works. And she has a number of versions of this, right? So if I highlight all this, actually, let's not highlight it. I'll just set it. If we come up here and we look, we can see that this is called Filigree color. And then where you would normally see like options like bold or italic or whatever, she has options called Pride, or there's Candy, which looks like this. So they have different colors baked into them. Something called Fire, Lemon, kind of fun, hard to read on the white background. Neon, ooh, that's a fun one, right? TV, interesting. Anyway, there's just a bunch of fun possibilities. And then she also has a version that's just black and white. And I just think that's so cool. And the background is actually, the letters themselves are hollow. So if we change this background color, I mean, this is going to look not great, but you can see that it's just negative space. So whatever background you put this on, that's going to change the color of the letters. Now, I'm going to go back to the Pride one because it's so fun. Oop, gotta be on the right layer. So what's also neat about really clever font designers and all the creative ways they've made use of this is that they can also bake in other glyphs, right? So if this is like a little banner and we want to add a little, we want to add a little tail here on the end of this, she has it set so that if I hit the shift period key, so I'm getting the caret, it turns into a cute little banner. And then we can do the same thing on this side. If I do shift and the less than symbol, we get this cute little banner. And I just think that's so neat. And these are some really cool ways that people are using these features. Okay, let's look at another example. Or actually, let's pop over to your chat questions because I want to make sure I'm getting those. Okay. There's a question about what font manager does everyone use. So if you're using a font manager, drop it in the chat so everyone can see that. I just use FontBook on the Mac. I don't do a lot of managing because once I get a font, I tend to like it and I just leave it there. So I'm constantly reminded that I need to go through and probably deactivate a bunch of fonts that I don't care to have. But I am yet to really do that. All right. But there's a lot of great font managers out there. Here's a question from Emily that says, I don't want to forget to ask, but how do you turn off automatic alternate glyphs in Illustrator. Specifically, I typed office and the F and the I automatically connected, which I did not want. Okay, good question, Emily. We will get to that. Let me show you something here in Photoshop first, and then I'll show you how to do it in Illustrator because it's different. Go figure. All right, so that's a good transition. So let's go back to Photoshop here, and I'm going to move on from this example to show you this one. So this is another font that's free from Adobe Fonts, so fonts.adobe.com. This one is called Looking Flowers. So if I put my cursor in here, you can see it up here, Looking Flowers, which is kind of a interesting grammatical formulation, but yeah, it's a really cute font. It's a very scripty font, got lots of cute things happening here. Now, this is how the font looks straight out of the box. So I've not enabled anything fancy yet. So we're gonna do like a before and after comparison. So one way to access the fancy is through the character panel in Photoshop. So you can get to the character panel, of course, from the window menu, or if your type tool is active, you also have this little button right up here. This is like a shortcut button to pop open your character and paragraph panel. So I have mine here on the screen because I use it a lot. And down here, see all these little buttons? These are the little shortcuts to enable some of these features. So, for example, this one right here, the F and the I, as Emily was just asking about, Emily was saying that this is happening where two letters are connecting. And in some cases, you don't want that. And in other cases, you do. So that's called a ligature. When letters connect together or when multiple letters become one glyph, one symbol, it's called a ligature. And there's two different kinds of ligatures. There's standard ligatures and there's discretionary ligatures. So the standard ligature icon is represented by an F and an I. So that's so funny that you mentioned that, Emily. So let's go ahead and enable this. If I turn this on, that enables the standard ligatures. And you'll notice, do you see what's happening here when I do it? It's changing only two things in this particular text. But if we zoom in on the double T right here, the idea, of course, is this font is trying to look hand lettered. And if you were hand lettering two double T's in a row, you would not make two separate crossbars and your T's would not be identical, right? So when we enable the standard ligatures, look what happens. That double T turns into a singular symbol that includes a double T. And now the crossbar is shared across both T's. And you can see the second T is a little bit taller and it reaches down a little bit lower. And that helps give this more of a polished, handmade look, which is pretty cool. So a lot of times the standard ligatures are double T's, double O's, double L's, or F's and I's. Here we see another example. I'll toggle it on and off. So look at this T and the H right here. If we toggle that on and off, you can see regular fonts, like just straight out of the gate with none of these open type features. They're just separate. But when we enable these standard ligatures, the crossbar on the T becomes the swoop on the H. So that is pretty cool. So that is just by enabling the standard ligatures. So what else do we have here? We also have something called discretionary ligatures. So standard ligatures are often employed to increase legibility, making things easier to read. So like in Emily's example, where there's an F followed by a lowercase I, the F can often swoop over and become the dot on the I. So the crossbar on the F would be used to dot the I, and it just makes it cleaner rather than having the F like crashing into the I dot. It just becomes it. So standard ones are generally employed to help with legibility. Discretionary ligatures are kind of more fancy versions. So let's see. The discretionary ligatures are right here. And if we enable this, we get the dot on the I, on the lowercase I, becoming the ascender on the lowercase d. So let me toggle that on and off, and you can see how that changes. Some other things we have in here are, these are called stylistic alternates. Now, if I enable this, you're going to see, whoa, look at what is happening. So many things are happening. We're getting yet another version of a double T. This one's got a fancier crossbar, which is now crashing into our R here. What else did we get? We got a fancier R, so it's making itself, it's putting itself in harm's way and getting itself crashed now. We're changing the N's, the U, all of it's kind of changing. This U is changing. We're getting a fancy R down here. So I just like to toggle it off because you can really see. Fancier R, we're getting a fancier P and a fancier N, probably some other stuff too. Oh yeah, this D now has a loop, whereas before it didn't. Or actually it's losing its loop. So you get the idea. So what does that mean? Stylistic alternates are when you have different versions of the same letter, they're just stylistically a little bit different. So sometimes that might be a lowercase a becoming a two-story A, which I don't think is happening here. But you can see in the icon, you can see that both of these characters are lowercase a's, but one has the little loop at the top and the other doesn't. So those are just different styles of the same lowercase letter. And that's what stylistic alternates are. Now, what's tricky is when you enable them, you generally don't want to like turn on all of these things because you can see it creates some problems, like how this is now crashing into the R. That's not ideal. So that brings us to another way to access these features. And the other reason why you would want another way to access them is that a lot of times there's multiple alternate styles of a character. And when you toggle this little button on and off, all it's doing is throwing in the next one in line. It's not like it, there could be, I know one font that has 47 different lowercase g's. Okay. And when you enable this little button, all it's doing is putting in version number 2. And you can't cycle through all the different versions from here. So this is kind of a limited way to do it. But one other alternative method is you can come in here and if you highlight a letter, you may get to see all the different versions down here. And then you could just choose to switch to a different one. So maybe we want this one here. So you can go in and swap them out. The double letters don't often show up here. So this is another reason why I'm going to show you another method in a minute. But like here, look at all these different R's we could pick. So, and like D's, maybe we want this D, but now it's crashing into the T. So we got to make a choice. I liked the loop though. We have some nicer looking lowercase t's. Maybe we want, nope, this one. So you could actually go in and character by character, just swap them out like in a way that makes sense so you can avoid these kinds of crashes. So I can put in this, this R right here. So we have that fun little loop on the R, but maybe we keep the standard ligature for the double T's. So you really get to fine tune your type. And of course, if you're a designer and you love type, then this is what it's all about. Like designers are not using the font just straight out of the box, like typing it out and that's it, right? Like we're going in, we're adjusting kerning and leading and horizontal spacing and all these things, different characters to really get the desired result. So now what if we did want that other double T in here? Or maybe there's even like a different version of a double T that wouldn't crash into the R. The ultimate way to find what your fonts are hiding from you is to go to the glyphs panel. So that is under Window, Glyphs. I have mine over here. And you want to be careful when you're in here because depending on how the designer organized it, you can't always be sure you're seeing everything unless you change the filter up here to not look at these categories. And instead, I like to set this to view the entire font. Now, keep in mind, that could mean scrolling through 4,000 glyphs or 1,200 glyphs. They're all different, so who knows? So this can be a little bit tedious, but I have found that sometimes designers categorize these different glyphs not in a way that I would have, and so I'm not finding it where I think it would be. So I like to come up here and make sure I'm looking at the entire font. So in the glyphs panel, we've got the name of the font right here, and you can change it by like pulling this open and looking, but also if you move your cursor and highlight the text, it will pull up that character here in the glyphs panel. And then I like to make sure I have it set to the entire font. And now we can scroll through here and see everything. And I could drag this big if we want to. And down at the bottom, you can increase the size of the little preview so you can really see. And if we just scroll through here, like, woo, look at all these lowercase s's. That's so cool. And here's all of our T's. Now the double T's were not up here. So they're probably, we got to keep scrolling. They're in like a ligature section. So I'm going to keep scrolling. Here we see a lot of other ligatures. We have a TH, a capital TH, a DT, there's the ID, TIs, SS, several different SS, RRs. We've even got some, sometimes you'll see 3 character ligatures. So I'm just going to keep scrolling. There we go. So here are all the double T's. So you see, we got this one when we enabled the standard ligature, but then when we enabled the stylistic alternates, it switched to this one. So this one is probably what comes up when you enable contextual alternates. I don't know why I can never say that. So we can check that in a minute, but contextual alternates are what Ulrika was using in the previous font we just looked at, where the font's actually smart enough to look at all the letters you're using and where the letters appear in relation to other letters, or for example, if they're at the end of a word. So this character, this double T that has this little swoopy tail on it, this would be what we would call a contextual alternate, because we don't want this in the middle of a word, because I mean, obviously this would mess up the spacing and push the next letter here weirdly over. So this becomes a contextual alternate, with the context being for when the 2 T's appear at the end of a word. How cool is that? So that's the kind of stuff you can really get in here and do. Okay. So let me show you. So those, let's recap, right? So we have the character panel, where you can toggle these things on and off. So you want to have your text layer active, or you can do it letter by letter, but and then you can toggle these things on and off here, and that's one way. You can highlight letters and see if there's other options for that letter. And then you just click to pop it in. You can open your glyphs panel to just take like a full inventory of everything in that font. Because sometimes you're like, I don't know how to find whatever character I'm looking for. Or like when you're working with a dingbat font, for example, then you pretty much have to go to the glyphs panel to just see what's in there. The other way is that you can come up to the type menu here in Photoshop. And then if you come down to open type, here you can see the available features for your active font. So this changes depending on the font and what the designer included and how they sort of tagged it, right? How they coded the font. So we can see here that we also have stylistic alternates as an option. And this is another way that you can toggle those features on or off. In this case, because I have a highlighted letter, I'm just toggling it for that letter. So let me try this again. We'll go back to the type menu, open type. Here we can turn stylistic alternates on or off. So that's another way. Let's go over to just quick. How are we on time? Oh, we're flying fast here. Same thing in InDesign, you can find these things in a number of places. If I grab my type tool, I often grab it from the little menu up here in my control panel where you can access open type, and then you can see all the different possible options. So this particular font that I've got active here has a lot of them, but you can probably can you get it from here? Not in InDesign. Yeah. So in InDesign, you got to get it from this little menu, which is in my control panel when I've got my type tool active. It might be in the properties panel somewhere, but who knows? I never use the properties panel. Let's look in Illustrator. Now we're over here in Illustrator, and also all of these apps have glyphs panels. If we go to type, where is our open type? And it might be also in our character panel. So let's open, do I have it? Yes, here's my character panel. And where is it? See what I'm saying? Show options. Here's some, like the small caps and superscript and that kind of stuff. But I don't know. Who knows where if you know, bring it in the chat. Oh, here we go. There's a whole open type tab in Illustrator. I've never done that because I always just use the glyphs panel. But there you go, Emily, to answer your question. In Illustrator, if you open your character panels, it's probably going to be grouped with it, but there's a whole open type menu. So if you go to the window menu and we go to type, here we go. There's actually an open type panel. Maybe InDesign has that. We can look, but I don't want to take up everyone's time. Because it's also up here. Okay, we got just a little bit left. Let's go to your chat and see what questions you guys have had that I haven't covered yet. So I see Fred asked, how do we see the glyphs, right? So you want to open the glyphs panel. In Illustrator and Photoshop, it's under Window Glyphs. And in InDesign, it's under the type or text menu because of course it is. Let's see. Will you provide a link to this? Because yeah, so when we're done here today, this will process and you can rewatch this whole thing on YouTube at your leisure. at your leisure. Other questions? I see some good answers in there about different font managers people are using. So yeah, good stuff. Yay! I'm glad you're learning stuff today. Oh, and now now you're hungry for butternut squid. I don't even know if that's a thing. I just made it up because then we had those letters. Uh yes, so the question is about in the character panel, those options will change based on the font. Yeah, so they may be grayed out if that font doesn't have them. So that is a good notice. And yay, Emily, we solved your crisis and your workaround. So I'm so happy to have helped you with that. Let me pop back over here to what I was doing in Photoshop because I just got to show you some more cool things. This is another font. This is also by Ulrike Rausch, also available in Adobe Fonts. This one's called Liebe Gerda. So Ulrike is a German font designer, and her fonts are often named Liebe something and then like a female name. So this one's Liebe Gerda. And she has put all these fun little like shortcuts in her fonts. And so, for example, you can see my cursor is active right here. And if I type, and I have to look because I never remember what it is. If I type Deco 9, it converts into this little glyph. So this is an example of contextual alternates where if it recognizes certain characters in a row, it just switches to a different glyph. So Deco 9 gives us this glyph. And if I come over to the end of this line, if I can get my cursor there, and I type Deco 10, guess we don't need the space here. Whoop. Then I get this other little fun glyph, and check this out. If I go down below and I type Deco 7, I get an underline. And it's just, I just think that's so fun. It's really cool how this stuff can be built and set up. Now, how do you figure all of this out? That's a good question. With this one, I got lucky because Ulrike has a lot of online presentations where she talks about. So I encourage you to like Google her and she's done some TEDx talks, I think, and some other talks about how she builds these fonts and everything that goes into them. And my goodness, it's just fun to know and to see and what she thinks about. And she typically spends 6 months to a year working on her fonts. So it's pretty amazing that we have access to so many of them on Adobe Fonts. So they really are, as I see David here in the chat talking about, yeah, these are not just fonts. They're like little software snippets, right? They're programmed. And that means that they can do some really cool things. So I'm going to jump down to show you one that is really cool. This is an example that I learned about from David called Chartwell. So there's a font. This one is not free, and because it's just vast and incredible, and like you have to pay for it. But if you do a lot of work where you're building charts and graphs and things, totally worth it. So I want to show you this one. It's called Chartwell, and it has lots of different flavors. So the one that I have set up here is it's the Chartwell font. And then it comes in flavors like bold and italic and whatever. And this particular one is called Rose because it turns numbers into data charts. In this case, I think it's called a rose compass or rose chart or what have you. And the way that this font is built is that you type out the series of numbers that you want and you put them in the colors that you want. And then, so that's what this is. The A, you'll see why this is here in a minute. But before I do the magic, I'm going to scale this up really big because the sizing is kind of funny with this. So we have our text here, and then check this out. All we have to do is go in and enable discretionary ligatures, and look at that. It turned into a graph or chart or whatever data people call those things. And I just think that's amazing. And there's so many different versions of this, different types like scatter graphs and things that you can make. And now I have to turn this off because the A is screwing up. The A was there to tell the font what color to make the rings on the font. So now I think if we change this, now it might work. Whoop. If I didn't break it, I broke it, which is why I always get nervous about demoing this font. But it's really amazing. And so the creator of this font really took advantage of these ligatures to turn numbers into like a data representation. And it's amazing. So I see some people, holy cow, that's really cool. Yeah, it is amazing. So that font again is called Chartwell, not free, but if you work with a lot of data, oh my gosh. I told my brother about it because he's a doctor and he's always working with numbers. And I was like, here, now you don't have to build charts anymore if you get this font. So he was really excited to know about it also. Some other things, we're going to move on from that one. Other things that are in OpenType fonts is the ability to use old style numbers. And you may wonder, what is that? So here is some text with some numbers mixed in. And when we enable the ordinals, so for example, if I want to come in here, and this font is Warnock Pro, also from Adobe Fonts. If I enable ordinals, we get this kind of stuff. And then if we enable the old style numerals, so I'm going to come up to the character panel menu here, because here we can see, where is it? OpenType, our OpenType options. And there is a feature for old style numerals. So watch the numbers here, because right now they stick out like a sore thumb, right? We have, it's kind of like the numbers are like all caps screaming at us within the body of this other text. But if we enable old style numbers, did you see? It got so much just nicer. So old style numbers are what you use basically when you're mixing the numbers within body copy like this. And so it just blends a little nicer because the numbers now have ascenders and descenders, much like the letters do. So just like our P has a descender here, now the 7 has a little bit of a descender, and the 9 also. And it looks nice, and it helps with legibility and just not looking like all cap numbers screaming in your face. Okay, and then I'm going to bring it home because we have just a few minutes yet, but this is the other font by Ulrika that was not free. I bought it for $19 and I had to get it because I watched a whole thing about how she made it and I was like, you're a genius and I love it. So as designers, we love many things, right? So we might like coffee and then we might think, no, not coffee. Maybe we also like art. Yes, but not just art. Maybe we also like Photoshop. But how could we ever compare Photoshop to all of our other loves. And so maybe ultimately what we love is fonts. And then we love it so much we want to underline it. And then we're so happy about it that we're going to smile and declare our love with a heart. Isn't that just neat? Now, how did I do all that? How do you figure all of this stuff out? A lot of times, like Ulrika's really good about this. So this font, when I bought it, is called Liebe Heidi, and she includes a PDF like guide to how to use all the features. So the way that I did all this, where I could scribble this out, this font's intended to look like a ballpoint pen, and I think she nails it. I looked in her user guide, and so the way I'm doing this is to make the scribbles, I'm typing a dash. So here you can see one dash, but if I type 5 dashes, it scribbles out the word before it. Now, how is it doing that? It's got a scribble glyph. So let's look at the glyphs panel and we'll get to the right font. It's got a scribble glyph. So down here at the bottom, look at all the different scribble glyphs that she has. And they can be invoked from the glyphs panel. You can just click and insert any glyph, but you can do it on the fly if you know the key to use. And it's programmed so that this glyph that's 5 dashes long, the kerning is set on it so tight that it actually goes backwards and then is overlaid on top of whatever word preceded it. Isn't that cool? So here I typed, I don't know, 4 glyphs or something, 4 dashes, and I got a different scribble. I think I meant to do, yeah, this. And then this scribble here is 3 dashes. And the underline is by typing the equal sign 3 times. So if I type it 4 times, there's different underlines. And now I'm just adding them on top of each other. But isn't that fun? And her smiley face, if you type a colon and a dash and a closed parentheses, it gets a smiley face. And the heart is a greater than followed by the number 3. And I love this font so much. I was like, and I loved her talk about how she built it and everything that went into it. And I was like, I just want to support you and I need to have this because it makes me happy. So we buy fonts for all kinds of reasons, and there are so many more amazing things that can be done with fonts. So the bottom line is that you want to be a font detective and go out to Adobe's website, look for like display fonts or handwritten fonts, look for fonts that say that they have alternates and ligatures and all of those types of things, and then see what pops up. When you highlight a letter, it might pop up. If it doesn't mean it doesn't have those features. It just means you might have to go dig it up in the glyphs panel. So the glyphs panel is kind of like where everything's there, right? It's like the storage closet for all of the font. And then the other methods are like where you can kind of quickly access some things, but that is how that works. Let me pop into the chat here real quick for any last minute questions. Would you spell out whatever these are called? Oh yeah, so let's spell those out. I'll go back to my desktop here and show you. So this one, I'll just pull it up right here because I think it's better than if I spell it. You don't want me to type it. Liebe Heidi is this ballpoint pen one. The chart one is called Chartwell up here. A lot of fonts have this old style, like even I think Minion Pro would have this, but the one I'm using here is Warnock Pro. And This fun papaya one is another Ulrika one it's called Liebe Gerda. The Looking Flowers one is right here. And her fun Felicity. I'm butchering it. I'm so sorry. If someone would tell me how to pronounce it, I'd get it right. But Felicity Color. The family name for it is Tipoca series or something on the Tipoteca series right here. So I hope that helps, guys. I love it. Emily says, thank you so much. This was really fun. I'm so glad. Fred, it's always great to see you. Thanks for being here. Yes, I'll see you over on PhotoVax shortly. All right, everybody. This is so fun. Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Always a treat. And hey, if you want me to cover something specific in our next live stream, hit me up, hit up in the comments, send me a message, whatever, and I'll see what I can do. It's always great to be here, and I appreciate you all so much. And don't forget, if you want to join us on any of our events, you can save $100 with the code livestream. So I will look forward to seeing you next time, everybody. Stay warm out there and take care. Bye-bye.